Hello. A woman once complained to her husband that he never told her he loved her. He responded that he had told her that he loved her on their wedding day and that he would let her know if that situation ever changed. We all express our love for other people in different ways, don't we? For some, words are really important. For others, it's hugs. Some express their love through doing practical things to help. And others do it by spending time with those they care about. And some show their love with thoughtful gifts that they know the recipient will really appreciate. As we've already looked at in recent weeks, each of us will find different ways of reading the Bible and praying more helpful than others. And it's the same with worshipping God. And that's what we're looking at this week, worship. We might think of worship as something we do in a church building on a Sunday morning when we sing. But essentially, worship is expressing our love for God. Worship was once explained to me as worthship, telling God how much He's worth to us. Just as we all naturally express our love for other people in different ways, it's only natural that we will all feel more comfortable with expressing our love for God in certain ways too. Some of us will feel closer to God when we use words to worship Him, whether that's set prayers, Bible readings, or singing hymns. Some of us are naturally creative and draw close to God when we express our love through the things we create: painting, playing music, flower arranging, sewing. It doesn't matter what, it's just that you experience God's presence more deeply when you're being creative. Some people feel closest to God in nature and express their worship through those wow moments of enjoying God's creation. Others express their worship, their love for God, in action, through doing things. Whether that's helping clean the church building, collecting donations for the food bank, getting shopping for a neighbour, or going that extra mile in the workplace. We see this reflected in our gospel reading this week. The woman who pours oil on Jesus' head is worshipping God in a practical, experiential way. It would appear that the disciples, with their objections to her form of worship, would naturally worship God in a different way. They suggest that the money could be used better. But Jesus affirms the worship offered by the woman. He also affirms the worship of the disciples at different times as well. Jesus doesn't reject either way of worshipping, but instead recognises that true worship is worship however it's expressed. The key to anything being worship is, once again, our attitude. I can lead a service in church and go through the motions without actually worshipping God myself, if I'm thinking about what others are thinking of me and whether I'm impressing them. But simply looking up into the sky at night can be an act of worship if I then recognise how amazing God is for creating something so awesome. Our worship of God is about the whole of our lives, not just the part of the week that we have traditionally set apart for church. This is summed up really well by our reading from Deuteronomy. We should love God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our strength. It should be about the whole of who we are. The past few months have been difficult in so many ways. But one of the small silver linings, I believe, is that with our church buildings being shut, we have had to find new ways and new places in which to worship God. Out of necessity, back in March, worship moved into our homes. I've had quite a few people tell me that although they really miss meeting together in our buildings to worship together, they have enjoyed some of the changes we've experienced. People have started watching songs of praise or playing hymns on YouTube as they cook and eat their Sunday lunch. People have used different prayers. Families have taken it in turn to lead services at home using the worship resources that have been sent out. People have sat in the quiet of the early morning, enjoying being in God's presence with a cuppa as they pray for their friends and the world. As long as the coronavirus situation continues to improve, it looks as if we're going to be in the position to reopen our buildings so that we can once again gather for services. I'm really looking forward to us being able to gather so that we can worship God together in person again. And recognising that for some that won't be possible at this time, we're also working on ways to hopefully make our worship as inclusive as possible so that people can join us from home as well. But as we go back into our church buildings for corporate worship, it's also really important that we don't lose what we've gained and that we carry on worshipping God outside the church buildings too, whether that's at home, at work, or outside. Let's use this as an opportunity to grow into being more worshipful people, recognising God's presence with us in all the aspects of our lives and finding ways to worship Him and express our love for Him in new ways as we find our new normal. My challenge for us this week is at the start of each day to think about what we're likely to be doing that day and to think about how we can make it more worshipful. As we do the washing, we could thank God that through Jesus' death, all the bad things, all the wrong things we do are washed away. As we go for a walk or sit in the garden or look out the window, we could deliberately look for beauty and thank God for creation. As we do the shopping, we could thank God for the food that we have and buy a few extra bits for the food bank or soup kitchen. Those are just a few suggestions. What could you do that will draw you closer to this week, that will express your love for Him, that will help you make worship a way of life? God bless. Goodbye.